You've probably heard the debate a million times. Is astrology a science or is it just superstition? Well, for today, we're going to throw that whole question out the window. Instead, we're going to put on our systems engineer hat and look at astrology as something totally different, a piece of ancient and, frankly, surprisingly effective technology. So let me just throw this out there. What if we stop arguing about whether astrology is true and start asking a different question? Was it useful? What if its real job wasn't to accurately map the cosmos, but to solve a really fundamental human problem right here on Earth? Okay, here's our core idea for this entire explainer. Let's look at astrology as a decision support compression algorithm. Yeah, that's a mouthful, but think of it like this. It's ancient software designed specifically to help people make choices in a world that was just filled with overwhelming uncertainty. It took the best, most reliable data they had, the sky, and turned it into an operating system for life. To really understand any piece of engineering, you first have to understand the problem it was designed to solve. And for ancient people, the single biggest problem wasn't a lack of information. It was a lack of tools to make sense of it all. Their world was basically a storm of uncertainty. Just take a look at what they were missing. Try to imagine debugging your own personality or figuring out when to plant your crops without any of our modern tools. No statistics, no psychology, not even a basic concept of probability theory. You're just dealing with raw, unfiltered reality and the limited processing power of your own brain. But they weren't working with nothing. These were their raw materials. And a most important one was the sky. It was the one thing that was stable, predictable, and cyclical. It was the perfect shared screen to project all their anxieties onto, to search for patterns. For them, it was the only clock, calendar, and map that everyone shared. So how do you handle infinite complexity with a totally finite brain? Simple. You compress it. This is the absolute core engineering principle we're talking about today. Think about it like a JPEG file on your computer. To make a huge, high-resolution photo small enough to email, you use lossy compression. You intentionally throw away some of the detail. Well, astrology did the exact same thing with reality. It created a model that was simple, shareable, and most importantly, actionable. We love to think of ourselves as these rational beings, always searching for the perfect, 100% accurate truth. But from an evolutionary standpoint, that's just not how we're built. Evolution doesn't really care if you're right. It cares if you survive. Being perfectly accurate about something while a tiger is leaping at you, well, that's a losing strategy. And this is what we're actually built for. In a world with high stakes and not a lot of information, the ability to just move, to make a decision, any decision, and get others to move with you is way more valuable than being paralyzed, searching for the perfect answer. The goal isn't always to be right. Sometimes it's just to get unstuck. This lays out the engineering trade-off perfectly. On one side, you've got the slow, difficult, high-effort process of finding absolute truth. On the other side, you've got a system designed for speed and low friction. Astrology, as a system, deliberately chose the path on the right. It sacrificed high-resolution accuracy for something much more practical, usability. And that made it an incredible tool for getting groups of people to coordinate. So what was actually being compressed into the system? Well, it wasn't just random noise. This algorithm was bundling together all these different survival-critical data streams. You had seasonal patterns for farming, the timing for agriculture, even things like when diseases were likely to pop up. All of this complex information got encoded into a simple, shareable story about stars and signs. Okay, so we've covered the why they needed this algorithm so badly. Now let's get into the how. How did it actually work? What were the killer features of this ancient operating system that made it so good at reducing friction in their lives? These were the outputs. These were the specs. By creating this shared external framework for reality, the system could short-circuit some of our most destructive human habits. It gave people a way to explain failure, to navigate disagreements, and to make tough decisions without everything turning into a personal fight. Just think about how powerful a simple phrase like this is after, say, a failed battle or a bad harvest. It's not, the general messed up or you planted your crops too early. No, it's an external event that nobody could control. This feature, which we could call externalizing agency, is brilliant. It instantly reduces blame and shame, and it lets the group move on without tearing itself apart. Or let's take a more personal example. Think about dating or pairing up. How do two people get past their own anxieties and all the overthinking and just agree to move forward? Well, a simple shared belief can be the perfect little nudge they need. It's a really low-stakes way to break a deadlock. Let's just break down the mechanics here. What's really happening? First, a phrase like "the signs say yes" completely ends the cycle of overthinking by basically outsourcing the decision. Second, because the choice isn't being forced by one person's ego or will, it prevents anyone from feeling dominated. And finally, that creates this shared, easy, low-stakes path to yes. It's a fantastic piece of social technology, designed for one thing: reducing friction so people can get on with it. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is all interesting ancient history, but we're past all that now. But are we? The fundamental human need to use simple models to navigate a complex world hasn't gone anywhere. We've just updated the software. This was the ancient tech stack. You had a set of 12 personality archetypes, a few key variables with the planets, and a whole library of myths and stories to explain how it all worked together. It was a complete, if pretty low-resolution model of reality. And here's today's stack. See the pattern? We still love to categorize people into types. We still explain our relationships using frameworks like attachment styles. And now we literally ask algorithms on our phones to tell us who we're compatible with. It is the exact same impulse, just running on a new substrate. There's actually a great term from the world of design that explains why these systems are so sticky: psychological ergonomics. It means you design something to fit the user, not for technical perfection. These models, ancient and modern, aren't built for scientific accuracy. They're built for us. They fit the weird contours of our minds, they give us language for our feelings, and crucially, they give us permission to act. And really, if there's one thing you take away from all this, let it be this: the true genius of astrology wasn't its power to predict the future. It was its incredible ability to map the exact points where we humans get stuck. Stuck in doubt, stuck in disagreement, stuck in indecision, and then give us a shared tool to get moving again. So as we lean more and more on our own modern algorithms, from personality tests to dating apps, it's worth asking ourselves a question. Are our new, shiny models really any different? Are they built for discovering the truth? Or are we still just looking for a socially acceptable high-tech way to say, the signs say yes?